Meat. I used to work at a meat department. That's a good way to start the video, isn't it? So basically, where I'm going with that is that I used to work at a meat department, in a grocery store, and this was right after Taco Bell, right after that epic saga, and this was right in like May 2020-ish when I started there. So it was during the great such a great year that was, right? Anyway, so I started working there, and it's like they called it a butcher shop, but it's not really a butcher because they didn't kill anything there. It's just like a meat cuttery, I guess. I didn't cut the meat. I was just a clerk working at the front, the guy selling the stuff. And so I had the closing shift. So I worked from like 2 to 10, which sucked in hindsight because that meant I had to clean up after everyone. And if you've never had to clean up a meat department by yourself, it's not fun. It is not fun. You have to basically take apart all the machines, hand wash all of them. You get out this giant, like, suds machine and wash it all down. It's a whole mess. And of course, all the meat cutters, they're nice people, but they don't know how to clean up after themselves. Like, I'll go back there, they'll just leave, and there'll just be meat just sitting around, unwrapped and all that. Half the time, like I'll go back there, there'll be half a cow just sitting right there. In fact, I wouldn't have even been surprised if I went back there and there was just a live pig walking around at that point. Wouldn't even surprise me. But so you have to clean up all that and still watching the front, by the way, and you get to the customers. The cu the customers, that's always a staple of all my jobs pretty much is the customers. We'll get there though, and another part of it, you have to load the shelves and all that, and because this is during, the this is during when everyone was wearing masks and all that, and so you have to everyone's pretty much irritated. It's like 2020, 2021, 2022 kind of time. Everyone's pretty much irritated nonstop. You know, I am a little bit, all the customers are, everyone's kind of got an attitude. Unless you're like four, then you probably remember it. And so you have to clean up all the meat and you have to get the shrimp out, which is always a pain because you got to do that by hand. And you get some geniuses who will come in and pretend to be experts on the fish, all that. But you get the weirdos because you always get the weirdos. That's like the trademark of customer service. It's like a rite of passage, if you will. And so some of the notable individuals. The first one is this one woman who is used to be friends with my mother, and she was um a lot of things that I probably shouldn't say on YouTube, but basically, um, she'd come in and she'd ask any random question. Like she'd bring up I don't know, a steak, and she'd be like, "Is this on sale right now?" And so I just tell her, "No, it's not on sale," or "Yeah, it's 25% off." And every single time, this idiot would be like, "Could you go into the back and get someone who could tell me, or could you find someone who would know the answer to that?" "Why, sure thing, lady. I'll go ahead and do that." Walk into the back room, take about 4 steps, turn around, come right back out. I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, ma'am, but unfortunately that thing isn't on sale right now." And she'd just be like, "Oh, alright, thanks," and walk. I I don't know. I don't know. There's some true geniuses out there. I'll tell you what. Then there was this other guy, and this was only a one-time thing, but it was it's such meme worthy that I always remember it. So, some point, this couple walks in, and they're like, this guy is like the stereotypical baby boomer. All right, he's got the short gray cropped haircut, the big old beer gut, a fuck Biden T-shirt on, not wearing a mask, his wife was wearing a mask, but it was under her nose, so it's kind of pointless, really. And so these two, they walk up and they order like a steak or something. I don't remember. And so as I hand it to him, and keep in mind at the time, I had a necklace on, not this one. The one I had was like a pentacle, so like the star with the circle thing in it. And so I hand him the meat, and he says something that I can't quite understand because my hearing is going in my old age, in my 20s. So he says something about like a beast, and I'm like, oh, he's asking about the meat. So I'm like, this is a quarter pound tenderloin or whatever it was. And he reiterates, he's like, no, is that the mark of the beast? And it takes me a second to process it. And then I put two and two together, like both my neurons fire, and I put two and two together, and I realized he's talking about the pentacle thing. So I'm like, oh no, it's not a pentagram. It's it's a pentacle. It's got a circle around it or whatever the thing is. It represents protection or whatever. I was kind of into that at the time, and but the point is that I say that it's meant to for protection, and the guy responds, or it might have been his wife who said it. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, one of these two delightful fellows says, "Who's it to protect against? Jesus Christ." At that point, the cat's out of the bag now. I realize at this point, and so I'm like, no, it's to protect against idiots, but clearly it's not working. I didn't say that, obviously. I just kind of like, all right, chief, whatever, and then went into the back room because, I don't get paid to deal with these idiots. I mean, I do, but there's a limit. So I ended up going to the back room and I didn't see them again. Um, wasn't the last time I saw that genotype of individual, though. Sometime later, there was a guy who came in without a mask, and they're telling him, "You got to wear a mask in here. It's the law. It's the mandate." So this guy, uh, you know, not sure what he'd smoked before he came in there that day, but he takes his shirt off, puts it around like a scarf around his face, and he walks around the whole store with his phone out, like openly just taking pictures of the ceiling, I guess, like, his phone was up here, so he's like, I d I didn't ask him. I didn't wanna ask him because, you get into that conversation, and it's just you lose brain cells every time. So another time, and yeah, it is like 90% gonna be the customers because no one cares about working at the place, it's not important. Another time, this family is coming by, and it's like your grandma and grandpa and some parents and some kids and cousins. There's like 20 people in this group, and the whole crew just stops like right in front of my counter. I don't know what happened, but they just start going at it. The whole group just starts going at each other. They start yelling. The manager comes over, and I'm just like, I see this whole thing unfolding, and I'm just like, mm-hmm, nope. 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 Not. Nope. Not getting paid for that. Nope. So anyway, eventually they got corralled out of the store and into the front, and the cops ended up getting called. And I think somebody got arrested, probably. I don't remember. I wish I knew what they started arguing about, but I don't know. He's it's not even the first time that happened, but the other instances aren't quite as funny. But I know there was uh this one woman, just a real pissant of a person, would come up, and she's like an old lady, and occasionally she'd have her grandson. But she'd come up and she'd always have an attitude. And it's like she'd ask the most obscure questions about something. Like she'd ask, what region of the state was this meat in? Or like, what exactly was the weight of the animal before this meat was taken off of it? And how in the hell am I supposed to know that? I'm getting paid minimum wage to work at a front counter here, lady. I'm not an expert, all right? And she'd always have some rude remarks. She'd be like, "Oh, why are you working here then? What's even the point?" And it just gets eventually this woman, because she comes up, and every time if you're in the back room, there's a buzzer on the wall, so you hit the buzzer and it lets the person in the back room know that you're up there, and she'd always hit it, like, just multiple times until you get out there. So eventually, one day it's a long day, it's near the end of my shift, and I'm in the back room, and I hear this buzzer going off a couple of times. I'm just like, nope, nope. Listen, Chief, I got my limits, all right? I'm not gonna be one of those people that ends up freaking out and gets put on YouTube as a meme. I'm just I went into the back freezer and just sat there until the woman left. Found out apparently she made a whole scene because naturally she went and like was screaming at somebody that wasn't me because they're like, "Where's the person up here? Why isn't there a person here?" and all that. And it's like, I don't know. I wish I could ban people from the store. I feel like I I read this on the internet somewhere, but you should be allowed to like challenge one customer to a fight every year. Like you get a number of customers that you as a retail worker are allowed to legally challenge to a fight every year. Granted, she's an old lady and she's like on a walker, so maybe not a fair fight, but you know what? You got an attitude like that, lady, you might just get suplexed by a retail worker. You might just get the you might just get, the WWE thing thrown over the shoulder, pull out a metal folding chair, just no, I wouldn't do I'm not a violent person. I wouldn't do that to an old lady. No, but anyway, so uh a lot of the customers are weird. There was occasionally the weird employee. They kind of cycled through them every once in a while, so you get the weird ones. Uh, there's one guy who immediately caused problems. Like as soon as he got there, it was I don't know. I'll call him Bill. That wasn't his name, but I'll just call him Bill. He comes in here into the place and he works as the meat cutter, and immediately he's just got a permanent attitude. Like one of the other customers, who funnily enough was a substitute teacher I used to have in high school, comes up and he's asking him something. The guy just blows him off and storms into the back. And I'm like, way to go, dude. You made me feel bad for a customer. How often does that happen? Not very often, I'll tell you what. But anyway, and he'd always do that, dude. He'd always have an attitude. Like, I know one time I go into the back room and there's a fly going around, so I'm trying to like get the fly, but I'm trying to get the fly in like one of those plastic hamburger things. 'Cause, I don't want to go into the food area and just swat the fly right where the food's at. And, you could clean it up, but there's still probably going to be like a little bit of something there if you do that. So I don't want to just like slap it and just get that everywhere. So I'm trying to catch it in this plastic thing. And the guy's just the whole time going on a rant. He's like, you need to grow up. You need to learn all this stuff. And it keeps going to the point that I actually complained to the one of the managers, and he's like, "Well, you gotta go talk to the store supervisor, or whatever they're called." So I go talk to the store supervisor, but she's on vacation. So like a week later, I go in there, and she's not there that day, and it's the whole process. And eventually, all the stars aligned on a blue moon on Friday the 13th on New Year's Day, and I finally got to talk to the person in charge. And she's like, "Well, you got to talk to your manager about that." So I talked to the manager. "Well, you got to talk to the store supervisor about that." So, good times had by all. And eventually, that guy was kind of pretty much the reason I ended up leaving that job, partly because I was going back to college, and it didn't go college. I'm not that great at, or I wasn't. I'm better now, but anyway. But that guy, he's just a major dickhead for no reason. I don't know what his problem was. But yeah. the whole thing was kind of I ended up leaving in like 2022. More weird customers were there. It was good because I was right at the store if I needed to do any shopping. And once you clean the back room, nobody comes over there pretty much, so you can just slack off like 90% of the time. So I guess it wasn't all that bad. I knew some people, two coworkers I had would occasionally, um, they would just show up like with a Nintendo Switch and just start playing that on the table, and no one cared. You do whatever you wanted there. I could probably show up with an Xbox and set up a whole TV and a whole setup, do like they do on the internet. Can you beat Doom before the manager fires your ass for slacking off at the job? I don't know. Yeah, there wasn't really anything too notable about that job though. It's just like the next episode on my saga of the different jobs I've had over the ages. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. This is my outro now. My outro is just a thumbs up, so that's what I'm doing.